This is TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about Star Wars The Bad Batch, Episode 5, Rampage.
Echo, what's your position? Over.
It's not a toy, Omega.
Copy that. Why are we going to Ord Mantell? I thought the plan was to lay low.
Not while a bounty hunter's after you. We need to find out why. I know an informant there named Sid, who might be able to help. And you trust him? Well, the Jedi trusted him.
The Jedi who are all dead?
Will anyone have a better option?
He has a point. Right, not a toy.
Welcome back, fellow troopers. This is TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about Star Wars The Bad Batch, Episode 5, Rampage, and I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow troopers. I am one of your hosts, John.
And rounding out the group, I am Chris. And yes, we're talking about Rampage, The Bad Batch, Episode 5. Not the Dwayne The Rock Johnson film, Rampage, or the video game, which was the movie based on the video game.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It was reasonably successful, that movie, Rampage.
It was very successful.
Fun, wasn't it?
Less because of the IP and more, and the film, more because of the muscles.
Absolutely.
I have a confession, actually, because Dwayne The Rock Johnson is actually my favourite action star at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even his bad movies, I actually enjoy.
Yep.
It's really kind of quite incredible.
Well,
he can be in utter drivel. And I come out of it thinking, that's all right, actually. I think The Rock was excellent in that. So
well,
I think it's him. It's purely him.
We did watch Hobbs and Shaw and 3 of the Fast and Furious movies that he was in this week.
He does that. He elevates them.
He does.
He does. Well, he's fun. He's fun.
Yeah,
definitely.
he's fun.
Yeah.
So, my bit with Dwayne Johnson is he made Bambi 2, a skit on SNL, and I would legit watch that film if he made it. I am looking forward to so much for our comic book fans, Black Adam. Mm-hmm. So it is a DC character which was C tier. I would originally he was Shazam's counter, antagonist.
Yeah.
Antithesis. It was just a kind of meh. They've changed the appearance of the character in the comic books to look like Dwayne Johnson now.
Why not?
And I'm like, it makes sense. He is.
Well, they
he
did
just
it
wants
with Samuel L.
It's true, exactly. It's because they are now synonymous with those comic book characters. Yeah. I'm actually looking forward to the film. And it's supposedly got this all-star cast as well. Mm-hmm. But that's DC, not Star Wars. We're here to talk about The Bad Batch.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And we are leading up to some more Marvel coverage in the next couple of weeks, just to mention that. We are coming back to Loki, series on Disney Plus. It's coming out in just under 2 weeks' time, our next Marvel show. And I'm still a bit lost as to what it is we're going to see. It's still unsure exactly how much of a comedy show it's going to be. I feel like it is going to be a lot funnier, a lot less heavy than Falcon the Winter Soldier and WandaVision. I think we're going to see a bit more of a comedy there, but I am really excited to see Tom Hiddleston, reprising his role as Loki.
Yes. They have, their key writer did a interview this week. I don't know if he's the showrunner or he was one of the leads in the writer's room, and basically said, and it's a very PR-y spin, there's going to be key ramifications to the MCU based on this series. And I'm like, yeah, the whole thing is about time travel. Of course there's going to be ramifications.
Yes. Yeah, well, there absolutely will be. Remember, Chris, there's no showrunners in Marvel TV, so it probably was executive producer or lead writer, which is their equivalent of showrunner. That's Kevin Feige is the overall showrunner.
Exactly. Kevin Feige says, no,
that's not what's happening.
Yes. No, yes.
But let's
he
get
doesn't
it.
need to give any justifications.
Except he's made billions and billions of dollars from the MCU. So
Exactly.
what he says goes, basically. That's kind of how it works, right?
It is.
But let's get on to Star Wars, The Bad Batch, Episode 5, Rampage. The executive producers of the show, once again, Dave Filoni and Jennifer Corbett. This episode was written by Tamara Beaker Wilkinson. We have spoken about Tamara Beaker Wilkinson a few times. Chris, I know you're a big fan of Doom Patrol, and she's written 6 episodes of Doom Patrol. We've discussed her on the podcast 3 times in the past. We've discussed her for 2 episodes of Iron Fist Season 1 and a particularly divisive episode of Daredevil Season 3. She wrote the episode Karen, which finally gave us the story of Karen Page, something that we were looking forward to for 3 seasons. And I remember myself and John loving the episode, and Chris not being very impressed with a flashback episode in the season. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's probably the best way of putting it. That's a very polite and, yes, the PR sanitized way of saying, I disliked that episode, if I remember correctly.
Yep,
And
that was my memory too.
All I remember is, and even just thinking about it, I just see the white in the snow, and I'm like, oh, there you go.
Yes.
It's all back.
Excellent.
It was your hanging bags of rice or something from the Daredevil movie.
Oh, yeah,
Your
yeah.
equivalent.
Yes, it was.
Although I happen to love that.
Okay. I think you're actually thinking of Elektra movie.
Oh, maybe
there,
it's
John.
Elektra, yeah. Maybe
Okay,
it's
that's
Elektra.
taking us off way too
Yes.
far on a tangent. The episode was directed by Stuart Lee. Let's see if Tamara and Stuart has given us an episode that Chris likes better. John, do you want to give us the synopsis for this episode of The Bad Batch, Episode 5, Rampage?
Sure. After their narrow escape from Pantora, the Bad Batch go to Ord Mantell to research the bounty hunter chasing Omega. There they meet with former Jedi confidant Sid. Before she will give them the information they need, the team must go and recover a child called Muchi from some Zygerian slavers. Their plan doesn't go well as the Bad Batch are captured, but Omega releases an adolescent Cage Rancor and the Bad Batch are free. With the Rancor's help, they take out the Zygerians and free the slaves, but realize Muchi, the Rancor, is the one they've come to save. Wrecker battles Muchi, establishing dominance and bringing her back to Sid. With their mission complete, Sid warns Hunter that the Bad Batch must be highly valuable targets as the bounty hunter Fennec Shand is particularly dangerous, but she couldn't find out who hired Fennec. Sid assures them she'll keep their secret and offers the Bad Batch future jobs as Muchi is returned to her owner, Bib Fortuna, for transport to the palace of Jabba the Hutt on Tatooine.
Hut, 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 hut. I need some pizza. Hut.
Yes, Pizza the Hut.
Yes.
That was hilarious. Yum.
Spaceballs. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is going to be some episode.
Absolutely.
There's an energy in the air, and it is fun.
And Bib Fortuna as well. He does have my absolute favourite line ever from Star Wars, from Return of the Jedi, which is "Me wanna wonga,"
Ah, yes.
which sounds the most hypersexualized sort of thing that he wanted to do ever. Who knows? Because of course Star Wars never gave subtitles.
Absolutely,
Yes.
He speaks Huttese. That's
Yeah.
all we have. I was hoping
He is a Huttese.
I was hoping that that the Bad Batch might actually give us some subtitles for the Huttese, but it just literally says speaks Huttese. Some interesting tie-ins here, possibly to Return of the Jedi. I'm sure everybody who watched the episode will have realized the tie-in that we have. Chris, overall, before we get into our blaster points for the episode, has Tamara redeemed herself with this episode of The Bad Batch? Did you like this episode?
Yes, it has just grown on me, this show. Each episode, I'm starting to enjoy the characters more. They're placing the threads, and there's a lot of the bits, like, and we'll get into it, like Wrecker's Head and Omega being potentially Jedi or Darth Omega, whatever we want to call her, and all these, they're placing all these nice little tidbits.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not even tidbits. It's like crumbs that I am now picking up more and more. And then they sprinkle in these lovely Easter eggs. And I think it's more, this one I was like, oh my God, they're my Star Wars. Not like, and I very much connect with anything. So it's like Boba Fett and the Mandalorian. I connect with the post New Hope Star Wars more than the prequels and the Clone Wars. I know them deeper than I do know the Clone Wars era or the High Republic era kind of stuff. So this very much for me is now, it's very much growing on me.
Excellent. Like your rash, I guess.
Yes,
so I'm really pleased that we're doing this virtually.
Yes. Don't worry, you can't catch it. Or can you?
Or can you?
Let's get on to bullet point. Let's get on to blaster point number 1. John, do you want to kick us off? I know you really liked Omega in this episode and all of her chatter on her new communications device that the team have given to her.
Yes, I really liked Omega in this this show. In fact, she really grew on me, did Omega, because I think like she was just the cheekiness that came through. I thought was really it just was good. I'm like kind of. Okay, it's just the fun chatter that she had with getting the new comm device, getting really excited about it, and then using it to speak, obviously, to the rest of the Bad Batch, whilst effectively they were standing right next to her.
Yeah.
And like even just after Echo has said, it's not a toy, and she goes, copy that on it, to reply to him, was just really nice. Yeah. And, there's a few other ones where they were talking about, with the sort of diversion to go to Ord Mantell, to find out about, Fennec Shand, that, she just chips in right at the end, stood behind as they move apart to say, he has a point that they need to find out more about it. Right, not a toy, she continues. And I love the dialogue that they put, to Omega, at this right early on. And it just added something, the cheekiness to it, the whimsiness to it, I guess, was really good. And to top it all off as well, we did have Wrecker bench pressing Gonk, the droid, which I thought was quite nice.
Yeah.
Just because they are kind of useless, so he kind of finally found a use for the Gonk droid. Which
they can't even hide. Gunky, hide! And he just literally drops. I was like, that was a guttural giggle from me. I was just like, yeah, actually, that's probably what they would do. Yeah. It's that silly droid.
And Omega calls him Gonky. So, that's nice. It's a shame we don't have Clink that's stowed away, but nonetheless, we do have Gonky now.
Starting to incorporate the droid into the show. And the Gonk droids have always been useless throughout Star Wars, though. It's always been this joke of this droid that occasionally goes gonk as it walks past in the background, and that's basically it. So maybe you'll fall in love with Gonky in the future, John. You'll have a model of him up on the row, along with all of your other Star Wars statues.
I'm getting there with Gonky. And I think, it is one of the droids from the Star Wars universe that needs a bit of loving.
Redemption.
And a bit of redemption. So I think it's pretty good that they've got a Gonk droid, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think just, because I guess before we get on to Blaster Point 2, the segue is, and this just made me laugh as well, where, you have them arriving on Ord Mantell, they're looking for Sid, and, they're asking around the bar where Echo, believes Sid to be. He's never actually met her. And the lizard type maintenance person says, if you're not buying anything, get out. I'm not Sid. And you just have, Omega going across and saying, you're Sid, aren't you? And she's like, and you get introduced to this other, I think for me, really good character. I really like Sid, here saying, well, you're the brains of the operation effectively. And then again, on comes the comm. I found Sid, as she points behind her, with them there. And I just thought this was actually a really kind of great little opener. And really just was it really added to, Omega for me, to be honest. Yeah. And, I'm suddenly like going, I can see myself starting to get into her character, it was just really good because I think as well, we got the rules on Ord Mantell, if you get separated, use the calm, you know, after last week, you see all that. It's kind of just these little bits that kind of add to her. And of course, you know, she possibly, has gotten her weapon of choice.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, absolutely. Also really important that this is, the comm that was left behind from Crosshair, the 5th member of the team who's now no longer with them, obviously, but pointing out that now she is even more of a member of the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of saying, well, I guess we're never going to be dealing with Crosshair again. He's never going to be able to come back and join our team. You're now our new member almost. But it does make loads of sense after getting completely lost, on the last planet and not having any way to contact anybody, you know. So, now she has her little mobile phone to contact them when she's lost.
I get the feeling, and you put it best there. Crosshair's not coming back. He will be in the show. Mm-hmm. He will be most likely a continued antagonist and that type of thing. I just get the feeling Omega will become the de facto 5th member. Yeah. What I would love to see is a time jump where we get to midway through the season and then they you know, where you would usually kind of have a season break. Mm-hmm. And then they, like, a time jump of 5 to 10 years. And she is, I know we can't based on the timings of everything, but where you have a more grown up Omega.
Yeah. It's difficult to do time jumps in this show. You're right. But one of the really interesting things they do have available to them is they have, live action TV in The Mandalorian taking place, a bit down the line. Some characters already jumped over, from TV, from cartoon or animated versions into the TV shows. So potentially we could see a grown up Omega in The Mandalorian season 3, maybe.
That would be cool because I can see, can you imagine this potentially, I don't want to say force sensitive, but there's definitely when she's attuned, more empathic than the Bad Batch. So she was able to sense Sid. The way the camera was on her and the way that she was more clued in, they're starting to set some of those crumbs that she is sensitive or empathic or something. Yeah. But can you imagine that power set, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe full force, but kind of this badass Bad Batch, like, brought up with the kind of comedic elements of Wrecker, and so she can bench press, and then you're gonna have, like, the hunting skills of Hunter. Like, she becomes the best of all of them, and then you have that time jump. So then it is this older badass Bad Batch member.
I absolutely can see this, even in this show, in the next 2 or 3 seasons, potentially. I can see that development with the character as she develops into her own kind of segment of the Bad Batch. But definitely a really fun moments with her in this episode. Yeah. And I loved it was said with a tinge of sadness. I get, here's Crosshair's communicator. He's not going to need it now. So, I guess you've got it. It was said with that tinge of sadness of kind of cutting off an old friend. This was a member of their team that they're kind of saying goodbye to in that moment as well. So I kind of like that. Yeah. Let's get on to blaster point number 2. The kind of meat of the episode essentially is the mission that's given to them from Sid, played by the wonderful Rhea Perlman, who we older members of the team certainly remember from Cheers, weeknights on Thursdays when we were kids.
I take umbrage. I knew the voice. I just didn't know who it was. I was like, I should know who that is. And I was like, oh my God, who is it? And then it was when I talked to you, I went, oh, there you go. Okay, now connected, but.
Yeah, I think the character that she played in Cheers was a very sardonic, sarcastic character. So instantly hearing that voice and hearing her put down the Bad Batch when they walk in, you're kind of going, oh, that I definitely know who that is.
So she's basically just the same character in space and the name.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. That's how they went as a voice cast when they cast her. It's like, can you do the voice you did before, but you're just going to do it in space? Cool, yeah. Okay.
But they are given a mission because now they're on. I guess they're trying to find information about Fennec Shan, so they're given a mission to go and rescue Moochie, a young girl or a young female creature. I guess is the way that she's described, basically, who has been captured by slavers, the Zygerians, who are going to sell her off into slavery, but no details given to them about it being a Rancor. which I thought was quite fun. It's a good reveal to us as the audience, like. But you probably want to give at least some description of the character that you're going to be sending the Bad Batch out to collect when they're traveling to other planets, right? So what if they'd gotten there and there were like 700 people there, 200 female characters there. They had to guess which one was Moochie,
Well, that is true. That was the slight flaw in the plan.
Some description.
That Sid was a little sparse with the details, that she didn't even say whether, what,
species, like.
Yeah, they didn't even say what species, she was, and that it was a rancor, because obviously you had to have the rancor and wrecker dance, for him to establish the dominance, which I must say, again, was something that I really liked, just the air punching, because they were so knackered. So I thought it was really
fun.
good.
Yeah, really like that little fight where it seems to be going on for ages. How long has it been going on? Way too long. They both run out of their will to fight. But.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing here is, Moochie being wanted by Bib Fortuna, Jabba the Hutt's palace on Tatooine. So you're kind of like going, that's that cute baby that just turns into an utter nightmare, as they get older, as we see in Return of the Jedi. So, it is a little weird to kind of be going, oh, look at the cute little baby rancor, Moochie. Oh, Moochie. I mean, it does sound kind of like Tamagotchi, in a sense, like it's, so it was just like, okay, yeah, this thing has like, St. Bernard's saliva dripping from its fangs in Return of the Jedi. So, yeah.
But if it is the same Rancor, we're assuming it is the same Rancor. If it is, it does explain why the Keeper was crying when Moochie died. There's a little bit of, we have a little connection now with that character.
Yeah.
So we can kind of go, now we see when Luke had to kill the Rancor to get out of Jabba's palace. Now we see why somebody was really sad about that.
And he must have also had to show dominance, because so that the Rancor didn't eat him.
True.
Which just sounds like the most awful mating, sort of David Attenborough show that you could possibly get, really.
And
All I have in my head is the dog whisperer. Wasn't he always about dominate with the dog? So same thing. Yeah.
That's probably horrible for our listeners. I enjoyed this. The overall, because Sid gave them a data pad with all the extra details you need to know around this.
Right.
And I just got the feeling they didn't read that. They just went to the location.
Or that it's a young girl. That's what she says, ultimately.
Yeah.
And then they look at it and go, there's just one young girl there that's chained up.
Yeah.
That's the person that we need to rescue.
Like, thankfully they rescued her as well.
Yeah, that's true.
They didn't just leave her there and go, actually, we've got Moochie, that was our mission. We'll leave you to the slavers, but
so
at least they rescued both.
It was as soon as there was one girl, and I was like, okay, straight away. Like, it was just too easy. And then when they went, we'll save you, Moochie, and she didn't, the green-skinned alien didn't say or do anything at that first initial Moochie, I was like, alright, that's not Moochie. Cool. I would love to kind of de-age myself. I'm not going to say how many years, but to where maybe like I was like 10, 11, enjoying these types of shows for the first time. And these story beats were new to me. So like, as soon as I saw it was one and the girl, she didn't interact or and like see anything in her eyes, I was like, oh, okay, so it's going to be something weird.
Right.
Cool. That's been played out in 100 other shows. So and it's a classic. It is a fun story beat. So when you see this, I can't wait to share this with a little TV podcast industrialist of our own, because they're going to enjoy the hell out of this. And I'd love if any of our listeners have really small kids and they are watching this show with their small kids, what the kids are thinking about it. Because I think that's parts of this that we are clearly enjoying, and we've talked through it. Yeah. These types of kind of fun story beats where, as an adult, we've seen it across all these different shows, but the kids are possibly seeing it for the first time.
Absolutely.
I'd love to see, it's like a kid finding out Darth Vader is who Darth Vader is, in case I want to say it in case they're listening.
Well, look what it did for us. It turned us into lifelong Star Wars fans when we saw that as kids. So hopefully the show is bringing in brand new viewers and brand new lovers of Star Wars as well.
And ultimately, Omega is the hero of this.
Yes,
she helps to rescue the Bad Batch. So again, it's just a nice little bit of development for her character. And as I say, even just her getting a weapon, she activates it, that kind of, it wasn't a crossbow, it was like more of a normal archer's bow. But similar to, I guess, Chewbacca's in that sense, in that it fires laser bolts.
Yeah.
And, it's, she's kind of like, she opens it up and she's like startled, is like, and then puts it back. But, she takes it with her. So,
that's her new weapon.
See that in the future,
So like that was kind of really, really good, as well, just to see her have sort of, because it's a weapon, I guess with the Bad Batch, it feels then she's becoming more and more a part of the team. She'll have her skill, which is laser archery or something like that. Yeah. And so I think that's really good. And I like the fact she effectively pulls the wool over the Zygerian eyes by, saying, "What were you doing around the container?" "Well, I was unlocking it." And that causes the chaos and off they go.
Do you know what I particularly liked about that? This isn't the trope of kids' cartoons where they're the ones that always are the ones to free the adults, effectively. That's the normal trope. And normally it's because they fall into something by mistake and mistakenly do something. Omega specifically had this plan. She came up with it. She was able to achieve it before being caught. I think that's a little twist. I think that makes it a bit better for me to watch this play out in the show. So I really enjoyed that as well. But yes, this is the Rancor being taken off afterwards, being saved, making friends with Wrecker, who gets a good old fight in there, and then being taken off to Tatooine to live out its life in Jabba the Hutt's palace.
In an underground cell.
Yeah.
The
for a few more
years.
years.
From slaver to effectively worst zoo ever.
Birthday present for Jabba the Hutt. Let's get on to just a final blaster point, number 3. My blaster point that I was thinking about for this episode was just in the conversations that were going on with the slavers, with these Zygerian slavers that we have on the planet. I thought it was really interesting hearing this background stuff, and particularly because this is a show aimed at kids. We've talked about the balance between trying to talk to 50-year-olds who are watching the show and 8 and 10-year-olds who are watching the show. I thought it was really interesting here that the conversation between the slavers, largely dipped. So it was being said in the background. The conversation was happening between the Bad Batch and the Zygerians about the fact that they lost their ability to be slavers because the Republic had outlawed slavery. This goes back to Clone Wars, season 4. There was a 3-episode arc in Clone Wars series 4 with these characters where they were driven off one of their slaving planets, Kadavu, where they were practicing slavery effectively. And now you're hearing, because this empire has been created now, they're delighted because it means they can get back to slaving. And it's a really dark side of what's going on in the universe with the introduction of the Empire. We've talked about this on a number of episodes, these kind of things that are going on in the background, but I thought it was really well handled here as not being a main focus of the episode, because the episode is a fun little adventure, introducing more information for the Bad Batch, whereas this little element that's playing out is slavery's back in the universe here.
I didn't know that. In terms of the background, from, again, close newbie, no. For our listeners, again, I'll say it, I have no Clone Wars experience except for the actual film. This is the bit where I thought it was, where we always did think that the den of iniquity, the scum and villainy of the Galactic Empire was there for majority of it. We just didn't see. Yeah. And then what we're finding is, no, it was the Republic, the original Republic, outlawed a lot of it, and it wasn't there. And then when the Galactic Empire rose, that's when the seediness and the underbelly of the galactic universe bubbled to the top.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw at the beginning of A New Hope, which like, yeah, you have the Skull and Valley Cantina, you have like the Hutt Empire, all that type of thing is where it was all there. And then, as you said, it's at now the end. And then obviously as we go further into the New Republic, obviously hopefully that kind of disappears. Yeah. But it does make you think of the stories.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah, it's really important. Remember, the original introduction of Anakin Skywalker is that he's the child of a slave. His mother was enslaved. He comes from that background. What we're hearing from in this show is that what they're trying to replace the clones with is slaves who they're going to be, well, first it's going to be conscription and then it's going to be slavery, effectively pulling people from their families and putting them into the stormtrooper outfits to go and fight for the Empire. So it's a really important background thread that's being dealt with. And I just had to call out how it was dealt with in the episode. I thought it was done really well to have that conversation amongst the adults while Omega's off in the background. You hear the volume of it dipping, because she's far away, so she wouldn't have heard the conversation. I thought that was a good way to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Great. Yeah.
Any notes from the episode to discuss? Definitely want to touch on Wrecker, still having his headache. We mentioned before that it was very clear that this was staying in the episode. This is animation. Nothing is done in animation, without a reason. So they just highlighted it at the beginning of the episode that he's still having his headaches. He kind of pushes past everybody to get away and, hide his head when it's hurting. He does get hit in the head quite a few times by the Rancor as well.
Yes.
So, something's going to get that chip to kick in at some point.
Or it fixed it, maybe.
Well, maybe.
With all the counter bashes to the head.
I feel like we would have heard if it fixed it. I feel like that's playing out where everybody's up against Wrecker towards the end of this season.
I'm looking forward to what this does. Is it the chip malfunctions to the point where they have to, Wrecker blacks out and they have to go fix him? Or is it Wrecker turns the chip on because we know the chips were defective, and it actually activates, and Wrecker then becomes similar to Crosshair. Or I'm curious where this goes.
I think it's its own thing. He is the most likable character, as we mentioned before, from the Bad Batch. So of course you're going to have him versus the Bad Batch in the future.
It will be a fixer episode or something, a bit like with Echo from the Clone Wars. I guess because he wouldn't turn against them because they're not Jedi. Possibly that's where we find out something more about Omega. But certainly he might, I don't know, the chip may upload something that says, they are deserters and traitors, the Bad Batch, and so that's why he goes after them. So it could be a number of things or just one or the other of those, I guess. But it might help us determine a bit more whether Omega is or has force sensitivity, I guess.
Yeah.
I can't wait to find out.
Any other notes that you want to call out from the episode?
I think we mentioned it again whilst there was the reference to Crosshair in this episode. Still no view of that. I think it's still very much that we know that Crosshair is still on Kamino, and also no more kind of references back to the Kaminoans with that last element of in episode 3 about needing to get their assets back in order to get the sort of fresh genetic code for their operations to try and keep hold of the Empire's sort of contract, I guess, and money. So that's still kind of the just simmering away with no real kind of drive, except for the fact that Fennec Shand is most likely going to have been sent after them by one or the other.
Yeah. What do you think of the piece of information kind of shared by Sid to the Bad Batch? We kind of know it because we've seen Fennec Shand in Mandalorian. We know that she's a very dangerous character, but that kind of piece of information that's shared where Sid says you must be of a lot of importance if they've sent her after you, sent that particular bounty hunter after you, because she's known as being quite ruthless in her pursuit. So I thought that was quite interesting to get that, for them to get that piece of information, because they know Fennec Shand's after Omega. So that makes it even more important, I suppose, to them.
Yeah, and also that she's quite new to the whole bounty hunting thing, but she's been pretty ruthless,
Yeah.
and she's kind of risen in notoriety very quickly. So, yeah, that was all kind of interesting. I also kind of like the slight, like with Sid when she said that. And also, the great thing about with Sid, as I said, really like the character. There's also the opportunity for them to come back to her for more missions, more money, when they run low on cash. So, that's really, really good. But, she does say, I can keep a secret, that's fine. But, there was just that kind of lizardy glint in the eye, I guess, that suggests possibly, she's maybe a bit more on the V TV series kind of lizard spectrum, I guess, that she might just double cross them because at the end of the day, she's working with bounty hunters. She's working with effectively galactic gangsters with the Hutt family. And so, she's not afraid of mixing, dare I say it, with the wrong crowd as well.
Yeah.
So you just never know.
Well, yeah. Speaking of Sid, my other note about her is that did you notice the Beskar helmet in her office there? There was a helmet which is effectively a Mandalorian helmet on one side of the wall, and also she had a clone trooper or a stormtrooper helmet on the other side of her wall. I was kind of going, it's very difficult to come across a Mandalorian helmet. And she has one on her wall. Who do we know that recently lost their head in the Star Wars universe? Does she have Jango Fett's helmet sticking on her wall? Is that what she's collected from one of her contracts?
That is what it is.
Yeah, because it was white as well.
It was kind of, it could have been silver.
Or silver, yeah.
I was thinking about it. Maybe I went a bit too deep. It was just in the background, for a short time, but I was going, has she send somebody out to get Jango Fett's head and stick it on her wall?
And she had a good thing with the Jedis, so it could have been that Mace Windu gave it to her as a little present.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thanks for all the help, Sid. Here you go.
Here's the head of Jango Fett.
Well, minus Jango's head, of course.
Yeah, here's the helmet of Jango Fett.
Yes,
Sorry, yes.
Yeah. She kind of shakes it and they plunk. Probably it'd be like, it comes with extra innards.
Oh, no.
The question I have for you, in the previous shows, the characters like Sid and Cut and things like that, were there a lot of one-off characters where they get introduced to kind of save to be that point A to point B kind of connection, or do we expect to see Sid more later? Or is it going to be a bit of a mix?
There's a bit of a mix. I'd expect to see Sid back in the future in this show. I think the idea that she could possibly provide contracts for the Bad Batch, she specifically calls out that they are broke and have no friends, and those are the two things they need is money and friends, and she's willing to provide them contracts to give them money. So I think that means we're going to see her back in the next couple of episodes. But absolutely, over the course of the Clone Wars, there were tons of characters that would come in for one episode or for a short arc, 2 or 3 episodes, be really important, and then you'd never see them again. Remember, I mentioned Cut, the character that we saw being really important in the 3rd episode or 2nd episode of this show, only had 1 episode of the Clone Wars in 6 seasons. So there are certainly characters that popped in and out over the course of the years.
Yeah, and as well, Sid can provide them with information.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess there's a good reason for them to go back, possibly to see her. So yeah, I mean, it's just a mixture, really. Yeah. Some are there, and come in intermittently. Others are there for a sort of a series of story arc. Yeah. There's also, I guess, just them one-offs where, they would have gone to the planet of the day, or of the episode, and it would be, something to do with that particular storyline. And then they could have forgotten and show up 2 seasons, 3 seasons, down the line. So, I mean, it's not that they're just chucked in. If they need a reason to go back to that planet, there will be the same people there, exactly. And there will be that connection made. So,
Excellent. Excellent. Anything else you guys want to talk about on the episode at all?
Nothing else on my side.
Grant. Well, with that, Chris, what did you think of the Bad Batch episode 5 Rampage overall?
I really enjoyed it.
Excellent.
This one had a bit more connection for me, as I said, closer to the kind of more New Hope era, the original era. I don't know what we call them now. The original.
We can call them
trilogy.
the original trilogy.
Yeah. Okay. So 4, 5, 6. They were my episode. So there's the connection here is kind of, as we saw Bib Fortuna. I was like, oh my god, I know that. So this for me had more connections. I enjoyed it. They're putting more breadcrumbs. I could call a lot of the story beats miles in advance, but that's just it's a fun show to watch. It's not. You do not need to use all 80% of your brain to watch this. You can get away with 70 if you want. I don't use 20% of my brain, what I'm trying to say.
Excellent. I usually use that extra brain percentage just trying to recall things from Star Wars and Wars. Like, so I can put it in my notes when I'm watching the episodes.
But yeah, no, look, I really enjoyed it. And I think it's starting to grow on me, this show.
Excellent.
John, what did you think of this episode?
Yeah, I loved this episode. I'd give it 4.5 Rancor babies out of 5. Like, I loved having that connection to the Rancor from Jabba the Hutt's palace. That was really good. I'm assuming that, but you know, I think that's a great little nod. And just the contrast as well. You know, okay, she can give a good bite. Certainly this Rancor, but you know, relatively sort of. Kind of like a massive gorilla, effectively. Yeah. So, all relatively cute, and sort of the idea of what she becomes, I guess, is that nice little contrast. I really like what they did with Omega here. I think they just added something to her, which was the cheekiness, and maybe I just wasn't getting that previously, but I really enjoyed that. And her sort of coming in to save the day, it feels like, you know, her role is getting solidified, and that makes sense, you know, because of the previous episodes where both the Bad Batch is trying to figure Omega out, and Omega's trying to figure out effectively the galaxy because she's been stuck on Camino for so long. And really enjoyed Sid as well. Just having this new character, and just the drawl of Rhea Perlman was so good, perfect kind of voice, and just how she delivered it for that character. Like, you felt like she had been you feel like she's a part of the Star Wars galaxy, because of the writing and just that sardonic tone that she's got from her having to deal with people. I mean, even the moment where, you know, she's been threatened by Bib Fortuna, she's like, no need for threats, Bib, you know, I've got my best people on. You know, it was just, there was some real nice stuff going on there. So yeah, absolutely, really, really like this episode. Thanks. Derek?
Yeah, nothing really to add. I really enjoyed the episode. As I say, the tie-ins that are there, really good. I know there's some extended universe stories that have the Rancor monster named differently. I'm aware of that. I think for us, we're going to take it that Mushi is the Rancor that Luke Skywalker killed, because it's a fun way of tying the things in together in the stories.
Absolutely.
I think that's the way it works. It plays really well that way. So I like it like that. A good episode, fun episode. Looking forward to more as we go through the rest of the season. And as it goes on. Let's get on to some feedback. We have a sort of correction corner, as we do on some of our podcasts. We have a little correction to some of the things that we've said in previous episodes that may or may not be correct. Will B contacted us over on Twitter. He says, hey guys, just like you had American reruns air later in the UK, we had British sitcoms. I watched Are You Being Served and Keeping Up Appearances as a kid. Don't sell us short over the US. So Will did actually watch Keeping Up Appearances, John. You thought it hadn't broken out from Sunday afternoon television on BBC.
I think I said I couldn't imagine it going to being watched by Americans, or even going there. Like the people that brought us Star Trek and all the the Dukes of Hazzard, I guess that I remember that one. But the A-Team,
Knight Rider and A-Team.
Knight Rider, Airwolf, all these kind of cool shows that we would send them back utter nightmare stuff. Things of like my nightmare of Are You Being Served? Although
that wasn't bad. Keeping up
well, I
appearances.
guess it
bad.
had a gay character on it.
Yeah.
So, big ups for the representation at the time. And keeping up appearances. So I guess, fair dues for Will B for, getting those references. I always just thought it was sort of Monty Python. I guess that's the main thing that I kind of hear from like sort of big impact of, I guess British comedy, having an influence in the US. So
we know things like Red Dwarf have a big following, Doctor Who have a big following, all that kind of stuff. It's more, can you imagine a young kid in America sitting down to watch that when they had the choice not to, where we didn't have the choice not to watch Keeping Up Appearances. But that's really interesting. Will also points out that they do have a Chobani Flip yogurt, which is similar to Muller Fruit Corner Crisp. So they do have yogurt that you can have two separates put together. So thanks for that, Will, in our correction corner for this week.
And can I just add as well that if you were somehow it was family time and you were being forced to watch one of these sitcoms, we didn't even have mobile phones to look at.
That's true.
We had to read a book, which is fine. But I mean, that would show that you definitely aren't watching the TV.
Yeah, exactly. No, you have to laugh along with your mother or your grandmother who was watching. So that was a very important viewing experience. But do remember, American TV shows, we do get massive amounts of American TV shows, of course, but there are a lot of really bad shows that never get over here as well. We're very lucky. Only every once in a while something as bad as The Big Bang Theory slips through the net and gets put on television. So we're very lucky at that.
Ooh, controversial.
There you go. Thanks so much, Will.
Yeah, thanks so much, Will.
Cheers, Will. Over on Facebook, we got some feedback from Dr. Bob Phillips, who said, really enjoyed this episode with an emotional reminiscence to The Mandalorian and Bounty Hunter with a code stringing through it. Their approach to parenting and adolescence with that record talk is not one I can generally recommend, however. Very much intrigued to see where this setup takes us with organised crime gangs, corrupt government and military groups. Will they have to battle through in order to release Crosshairs from the control of the Empire? Very much maybe so, Mr. Bob. Dr. Bob, I should say. We'll see. I don't know. I still think that they may not free Crosshairs at all.
Yeah, I think Crosshair is going to battle against them. Yeah, I do wonder.
He could be the sacrificial kind of Bad Batch.
Yeah, I do wonder, as we mentioned earlier on, obviously it's also leading to Wrecker possibly being up against the team. Will it be Wrecker and Crosshair versus the team, joining up together? That's also a possibility. But yeah, I love the kind of expansion of the universe that the Bad Batch are going to be playing in, during this episode particularly. Thanks, Dr. Bob.
Yeah, thanks so much, Bob. Also over on Facebook, Deanna Mascal says, I loved this episode. Great action and plot development. The Bad Batch are so clearly out of their depth here. It is also interesting that it is Echo who comes up with this plan, but it does make sense as the one member of the group who worked closest with the Jedi. I also love that it is Omega and her observation skills that cracks the case on Sid. I enjoyed the rules they set out for Omega. They just might be getting the hang of this parenting thing after all. They managed to handle a ranker too. Sid gets their measure very quickly and clearly can only be trusted as far as she thinks they are useful to her. I love that she sums up Omega as the brains of the operation and asks the Bad Batch if they are fresh out of the tube. Yeah, absolutely. In a way, they are as tech notes when he comments, this is not a standard military operation. They bristle at the idea of being called mercenaries, but we all saw that one coming. I love Sid as a character, although I kept getting serious Monster Inc. vibes from her, as she can be a valuable, if problematic, ally, but that is pure Star Wars after all. She is great because she is clearly smarter than everyone, except hopefully Omega, but we are currently unsure of her ethical code.
Exactly.
We know that Omega and Echo especially will not stand for any grey moral areas, although the rest of the Bad Batch might be more susceptible. Not because they are morally suspect, but because they are so out of their depth, they could be more easily manipulated. Mm-hmm. I think Omega has the strong moral code of an innocent, but I'm grappling with her special trait, and I think that gives her a stronger sense of right and wrong, whether she is more in tune with the Force or is an empath. And of course, Echo's history with the stronger association with the Jedi plus his long captivity give him a clearer moral code. I like how this episode also established a bond between Echo and Omega. He was the one asking her about what she would do if she got into trouble after Hunter asked her to review the rules. He was the one sending her a message when she was sneaking about, and he was her partner at the end, even if Hunter was actually just sending them off on the easier mission. I enjoyed that she was the one to rescue the Bad Batch, but it was more believable because she did make a mistake that Wrecker needed to cover up, and she was also working off the clues that Echo gave her. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, it was a very Omega rescue, as it depended on her own observational skills and using the tools available to her. The Bad Batch may have mixed feelings about telling her to keep her eyes and ears on her surroundings, and could probably do more of the same. Mm-hmm. I really like the balance of interesting challenges, great action, and plot development this episode offers. Sets us up for all sorts of interesting adventures to come, especially with all the little hints that the Fets and Hutts might join the party. Still worried about Wrecker's head, but hope it will lead us to Rex.
Ooh, yes, Captain Rex, possibly on the horizon.
Yeah, thanks, Deanna. That's some really good stuff. I do definitely like what you're saying around Echo and Omega working together and establishing that bond. I mean, he's also even the one that tells her off right at the start that it's not a toy. Mm-hmm. And I really I like the way you're describing how you can see that they have that stronger moral code, mm-hmm. And why as well. I think certainly, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm certainly as well getting the idea that not entirely sure. I know I mentioned it on the podcast about, possibly being Force sensitive. But it's less clear, as you were, saying, about grappling with her special trait. It's not clear to me that she does have Force abilities. I keep saying it because it's maybe the new thing that the Kaminoans did through their genetics. But, similarly, it looks less like that, to be honest.
I'm leaning more towards her being Palpatine's first clone, or the first clone of Palpatine. That's where I'm kind of leaning. Maybe she's not Force powered, or she could just be, another member of the Bad Batch with her own, special ability that we'll see in the future. Maybe not Force sensitivity, but maybe, it is that ability that she'll have to use that awesome weapon that she just picked up, on the planet here. Maybe that's it. Thanks so much, Deanna, for the feedback.
Yes, thank you so much, Deanna. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to a wrap of this episode of our Bad Batch discussion for episode 5, Rampage. Do not forget, you can head on over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, where you can support us for a $1 bill, a galactic credit, or a Republic doula. I don't know. Whatever the Republic used at one point. That's yet to be. It's a credit as well.
Yeah.
But we'll say it's a doula for the fun. Yes, you can support us for just $1 galactic credit, and it helps keep the lights on, the podcast going, the servers up. And if you want to keep our illustrious editor in caffeine as he toils away into the wee hours of the galactic time night, I don't know. I'm using words. It makes no sense.
Just putting galactic in front of everything isn't going to turn it into Star Wars, Chris.
It does. It really does. Okay, fine. But if you want to go on over to buymeacoffee.com/TVPI, you can buy Derek a galactic coffee.
Mm-hmm.
See, and it's better because it's a galactic coffee.
It is. It keeps me up even longer doing the editing. Thanks so much to everybody that's been supporting us over there on Patreon and on Buy Me a Coffee, and also sharing our podcast episodes. Really good of you to everybody that's been sharing our episodes throughout our coverage of any of the shows that we've been covering. Loads more to cover this year. You guys saw the Eternals trailer came out this week, right? So really looking forward to that. That's looking really interesting. We've got Black Widow coming up. We've got Loki coming up next month. Lots and lots of stuff on the Marvel side. And loads of our shows are going to be getting into their second seasons. There's going to get to a point where we'll have so much back on the plate. But right now, really enjoying having one show a week covering Star Wars: The Bad Batch.
Yes. Very quickly, on the Eternals, you guys are going to hate me for it. Not you two. You guys are going to love me. But our audience, because I love Kirby's original Eternal run. Neil Gaiman's run, every other run they've done since. I am waiting. The new series has started. I haven't kind of watched it. I, back as a kid, read Eric Von Daniken's original Chariots of the God book.
Excellent.
Just because Ancient Aliens, why not? It's fun. And yeah, they're all fantastic comic books. So this film is going to be like crack to me. I'm gobbling up everything that they're putting out just because I want to see how it's done, so I cannot wait. But I was in, and don't forget later on, if you can, please support your local comic book stores. I was in our local comic book store today because it recently reopened, and I picked up one of the Loki runs in anticipation for Loki in the MCU, which hopefully might actually feed in, so I might have some background into some stuff he's doing. Who knows? But that is still 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
For now, we are in a galaxy far, far away.
Absolutely. And we'll be back next weekend with our show about Star Wars: The Bad Batch Episode 6, which airs on Disney Plus next Friday, June 4th.
Doo-doo-doo.
Thanks so much for joining us for this week's episode.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much, fellow troopers, for joining us. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep trooping.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.